Your first turning point separates Act 1 from Act 2, and in so doing, it propels the action in a new direction. It raises the central question again, and you really need to keep going back to that central question at key points in the script to remind your audience, your viewers, and your readers that you have a point and you're going somewhere with this story. Often the protagonist must make a choice. We'll talk a little bit later about the quality of those choices. Raises the stakes and takes the viewers into a new arena. Approximately pages 25 through 35 in a feature-length screenplay. So about 1/3 of the way through the screenplay. In Star Wars Episode 4, the first turning point is when Luke discovers that the Empire has killed his aunt and uncle, because this means he has nothing tying him here to Tatooine, and he is free to go with Obi-Wan and discover. Well, he actually says, "I want to go with you to Alderaan. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father." So he clearly articulates three goals. The first goal, "I want to go with you to Alderaan," is going to take us into Act 2. And we'll get to meet Han and Chewbacca in Mos Eisley. Han shot first. And have our first space adventure. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what happens directly when we talk about Act 2. But most important is, I want to learn the ways of the Force, which is Luke is going to start his training in Act 2 of Episode 4. And most important, I want to become a Jedi like my father. The ultimate resolution of the classic trilogy is Luke realizing in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, I don't want to be a Jedi like my father because A, he's the Emperor's lapdog, and B, he's trying to kill me right now. By choosing not to kill his father, Luke ends up redeeming his father, which is kind of cool. Now, the next important plot point is the midpoint scene. The midpoint scene, as the name implies, divides the story in half and divides Act 2 in half. That may not sound that consequential, but think of it this way. That gives you a direction for the first half of Act 2 and a change in direction for the second half. And Act 2s are traditionally where a lot of really cool premises end up going flat, or where writers or filmmakers get lost in their own story or wander around in 40 plus pages of wilderness. The midpoint scene isn't a full-fledged reversal. Think of it more as a mile marker. And by planting it there, you have somewhere to get to and somewhere to come from. The cool thing about Star Wars is we begin Act 2, and Luke's goal, as I just said, is to go with Ben to Alderaan. Well, guess what? After, hiring a space freighter to go to Alderaan and having a space battle, they try to go to Alderaan, and Alderaan be gone. It's not there anymore. And to make matters worse, and we get the signature line, "I've got a bad feeling about this," that's no moon, it's a space station. Boom, boom, boom. So they end up getting captured by the Death Star. So the first half of Act 2 becomes about getting to Alderaan. The second half of Act 2 becomes about escaping from Death Star. Fun fact, one of the very first licensed products, one of the few things that was out for Christmas of '77, was a board game called Escape from Death Star. Then at the end, you have the second turning point. Notice that the second turning point does everything that the first turning point does. Propels action in a new direction, check. Raises the central question again, check. Protagonist must make a choice, check. Raises the stakes, check. Takes viewers into a new arena, check. Speeds up the action. That's the crucial difference. That second turning point speeds up the action. In fact, in some movies, including Star Wars, we're going to add a ticking clock at some point in Act 3 to remind you that you have a limited amount of time before bad things happen. I said earlier at the first turning point, we're going to talk about the quality of choices. The one structural flaw in Star Wars is Luke's choice at the first turning point and the second turning point is the same exact choice. First turning point, Luke's aunt and uncle are murdered by the Empire, and Luke decides, I'm going to go with you to Alderaan. Think of the old song, "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" Well, if he stays, he's probably going to die. If he goes, he has a chance to not die. Pretty good odds, so go. Second turning point, Ben is killed. Obi-Wan is killed by Darth Vader. And again, if they stay on Death Star, good chance they're going to die. If they leave, they've got a fighting chance to save the day, especially since R2's got those Death Star plans in him. And thanks to Rogue One, we know why Death Star was so easy to blow up. So the problem is, because Luke's choices are very basic, should I stay or should I go? I'll go and have an opportunity to live and fight another day. We don't learn much about his character. But in the subsequent films, Luke's choices get a lot more interesting. Specifically, at the second turning point of Empire Strikes Back, he is told by Yoda, do not abandon your training. If you go to Cloud City and Bespin, you will put yourself and your friends in greater danger. And Luke, being impetuous and thinking that I'm not going to listen to you, you're a little green muppet who sounds just like Grover. And he falls right into Dad's trap and ultimately loses his right hand. So, interesting choice. It shows that Luke is still impetuous and not thinking clearly. He's being overcome by emotion instead of reason. And we learn about his character that way. Now that we're into Act 3, we have the crisis. And the crisis is the ultimate decision. Robert McKee calls it the obligatory scene. It's the choice the protagonist must make, its true dilemma, and it reveals the story's most important value. So stovetop stuffing versus potatoes is not going to cut it. It's got to be something meaningful. In some cases, it's the message the screenwriter wants to impart, and it could be the reason why he told the story. Stand by for the climax that goes after the crisis.